especially my co-chair, Councilman Z. Cohen, and all of our committed task force members. Just want to say glad to see everyone today. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right. So glad to see everyone. We're really excited about today's meeting. Before we get started, I don't know why Councilman Cohen allowed me to do the welcome today, but since he did allow me to do the welcome, I just want to check in and see if there's anyone who has something related to their work in trauma-informed care that they would like to share with the public. I'm going totally rogue right now because it's my last meeting, so I'm doing it the way I want to do it. So is there anything related to trauma-informed care that any of our task members would like to share with your colleagues and the public today?
I'll just share that the reason Monica is not going to be here tonight is she got featured in the Baltimore top 25 women. And so she's got like a whole thing for that.
What?
So yeah, no joke. The Baltimore Sun did this thing. So definitely give her a hard time for that. The next time you see her, I'm going to put it all over my social. But it's awesome.
No, that's wonderful. Our task force are definitely leaders in the communities, rock stars. So I'm not very surprised. She's very deserving of that honor. So wonderful. Well, hearing no other announcements.
Chris was about to say something.
Oh, okay.
Rudely.
Well, I do have something to throw out there. I know that a lot of folks here and doing trauma-informed work are within the behavioral health field. And work related, we just launched a free accessible provider well-being website. So kind of thinking about to really engage in this care, we often have to be caring for ourselves. It is a go at your own pace, self-care. There's some assessment, how to sort of improve your own well-being that might be important for folks doing this work. So happy to share that as a resource.
Thank you. Did you put it in the chat for us?
I did.
Okay, wonderful. Any other quick announcements from our task force?
Yeah, I'll throw out one more thing related to taking care of ourselves and taking care of our colleagues. We are going to hold a little party for educators involved in greening, outdoor nature, environmental, and healing-centered programming that we're connected with. That's both teachers and informal educators. So I put a link in the chat to our little RSVP thing for that. If anybody is involved in teaching kids in those ways and wants to come, you're more than welcome to join us. It's technically past when you're supposed to RSVP, but just put your name on there and come have cake and wine with us in the park. We were originally thinking about it specifically in regards to teachers, but all of us could use this break, and I'm really glad that a colleague of mine suggested that we just take the time and do that. And I would encourage everybody to make space for that in your work with your networks.
Love it. Anything else from our task force? Thank you for that. Anything else? All right, am I missing anyone, Anne or Zeke? All right, hearing none. Thank you for lifting up the great work that everyone is doing on a daily basis in support of our community. I think, Anne, this is the point where we are supposed to do our round the horn, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So do you have a prompt for us for today's Round the Horn?
I do. Our prompt today is more geared towards getting to know people than being necessarily focused on healing.
Okay.
So we go back and forth on having kind of get to know you moments versus really thinking about deep in the work. And as we're coming up on a season of holidays, we're going to break into pairs and share a favorite holiday memory. It could be Halloween focused. It could not be Halloween focused. It can be any holiday kind of tradition or memory that you have that you want to share with folks here.
Wonderful.
So I will put that in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and open breakout rooms, and we'll take about 3 minutes. So we'll regroup pretty close to 5:39, 5:40. So,
All right, let's do it.
okay. So it's favorite holiday memories. Dr. Zinn, I'm not sure if you're able to move. I may pull Elder back here.
Hello, and sorry for my tardiness.
You're okay. I'm going to move you into a room with Elder, and I'm going to have you all share what we're sharing is a favorite holiday memory. So
Awesome.
let me get you assigned there. Actually, I'm going to assign you with Donna. So there you
Okay.
go. Thanks.
Sounds good.
All right. Elder, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I think Dr. Zinn is having a hard time getting into your room. So I'll talk, and if Dr. Zinn can hop on, great. But sometimes technical difficulties happen. So what is a favorite holiday memory that you have, Elder?
I think I would have to say Christmas, just with my mom. I'm trying to think of a specific holiday, because we kind of had the traditions, wake up, make cookies and stuff like that. I think I would probably have to say the year that I got a toy pony. I was really, really excited about that. Like, I used to love horses. So once I got that, I was really excited. That's one of my favorite memories.
Nice, nice. Hello, Dr. Daniels. We are just sharing our favorite holiday memory. It could be any holiday. It could be Halloween specific or any holiday.
Oh, oh, I love Christmas. My favorite memory was when my uncle told me that the reindeer was sitting on the steps a few minutes ago, is what he would say. I got up and ran through the house to get outside to look for the reindeer on the corner, he said. He said it just flew off. I love Christmas, but I still remember that one because I start crying. I had on my pajamas and I start crying. But that was one of my favorite, because as I grew older, I thought it was, back then I just thought it was just real cute.
Yes, yes. Right. I think we're starting to have most people
Great.
back.
All right. So do you want us to move into the next segment, Anne?
Yep, I think so.
All right. Well, I'm super excited about today's meeting because I'm going to learn more about two people that I work very closely with. And I know it's like you think you know them, but I know they're going to tell me something about themselves that I didn't know. So I'm very excited that our getting to know section this evening is going to be Jacia Smith, who is the chief of staff for the Baltimore City Rec and Parks. And after Jacia, you can just pass the mic, Jacia, to Councilman Cohen, who is our leader and co-chair of the task force, so that we can get to know both of you a little bit better this evening. So I will pass the mic to Jacia.
All right, good evening, everyone. So first of all, this is a very intimidating task because you all have like graphics and movies and like really cool things that you do. I, on the other hand, I'm not as glamorous in that regard. So what I tried to do today for the 5 minutes that I'm allotted to talk about myself is I have a slideshow of pictures. So I'm gonna talk through them and talk about who I am, because I think what I do is just a small part of me. I'm the Chief of Staff for Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. I help lead the strategic vision of the agency. I oversee the senior leadership team. So that's the boring part of who I am. I'm an attorney, first generation college student, all those things. But I think hopefully going through a couple of family photos and things will give you a little bit of who and why I present the way that I do. So hopefully you can see a fuzzy old picture of my parents. Is that what you all are seeing? Not yet. Wait, you got to press share. Boom. Do you see my parents? No? Yes? Okay. So here, right, if you really look, that lady looks really much like me because she's my mother. So this is a picture of my parents. I don't have many pictures of them together because, as you know, trauma would show up. My parents are divorced. But I love this picture because they both look so young, and I can tell that my mom was enamored by my father, who is, he was a ladies' man. He was, has a very outspoken personality. If you meet him right now, he's about 5'10", but he presents like a 6'6" millionaire, and that's not our true standing, but you know, he speaks things into existence. My mother, on the other hand, is everybody's favorite everything. She's a nurse. She just recently retired, but she is sweet as pie. So they were like two people who probably shouldn't have been together. She was on, you know, a nurse and went to school. My dad lived a colorful life, but always worked. He retired from Chrysler after 20 years. So he just had a very complex life. And he was, my mom is from New York. I always say, I feel like I kind of got cheated because I don't have a lot of cousins from the South. My mom was born in New York. My dad spent most of his life in New York. So we are truly upstate New York people. So I'm from Rochester, New York. So I didn't spend any summers down South, even though we still have the traditional soul food. My mom is the family cook, but I didn't do any summers in North Carolina or Alabama. So I feel a little cheated. So this again is a picture of me and my siblings and my father back in the 80s. Apparently back in the 80s, you went to parks and took pictures without your hair done. So this was us and all of our happiness, and even in a split household. This is probably the only picture that I have of both of my parents and all of my siblings. So this is my sister's wedding from a number of years ago. And my sister, she loves the color pink. I do not. But in this day, I was forced to put on this lovely pink dress, which I think I pulled it off quite nicely. But this is just a picture. For me, it shows how that even through trauma, my parents are divorced. We ended up leaving Syracuse, New York, where I was born, and living in Rochester. But we are able to come together periodically for moments that matter. So this is my very handsome family, if I do say so myself. So one of the biggest things about Jacia, if you ask me who I am and what's important to me, is family. So my family is the most important thing to me. I go home multiple times a year. Here's a family photo. We have what we call the Reese Family Games, which is a big kickball game with me and all my cousins and their children. So the most important thing to me, if nothing else matters, is my family. So it defines who I am. It colors the way I think about the world. And next will be my lovely tribe that I developed at the illustrious Hampton University. I'm a proud alumni of Hampton University. Through that, being a first generation college student, here's some young Jacia photos. This is like a 19-year-old Jacia. We were all first generation college students in this picture. We ended up being lawyers and doctors and leaders and executives. So I'm excited about the bonds that I made at Hampton and all of the memories and really weird and fun experiences we have. So this is a picture of us from last December. Me and all of my good girlfriends from Hampton still get together annually, and they help ground me. And this is a picture that I'm super, super proud of. My niece is a freshman this year at Hampton University. So she is following in my footsteps. She's at Hampton as a freshman political science major like her auntie. And then most recently, I was recognized by Hampton University's 40 under 40. So I have been identified as one of the top alumni under 40 years old. I just made the cut because I'm 39 and some change, but it was a great time. I'm great to be honored amongst a bunch of people. And according to my clock, I'm almost out of time. But I'm also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Through that organization, I have made bonds and connections that are lifelong. This here is my better half and my son. I don't have any biological or like children, but this is my dog child, and he's amazing. And this is Anthony. He puts up with me every single day, and we are doing life together, and I'm excited about it. And that's Montana with his tongue out, because he is just everything. And I never thought I would love an animal, but I do. I also like to play kickball. It's a weird thing. It's like a passion of mine. I've been playing for a couple of years. I play on Wednesdays in Patterson, and we typically win the championship. And I love to travel. This one was a little risky, but I thought it was nice to just think of where we could be this time next summer. And last but not least, I like to connect with other amazing women. So I'm ending my introduction with a picture of me and Tisha. So that's Jacia in 5 minutes. All right. I don't know how to stop sharing though. I gotta find that. It's over here.
Can I just say I love me some Jacia before Councilman Cohen gets on the mic.
All right. So that's me. Councilman Cohen, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Jacia. Can we give a big round of applause for Jacia, who happens to be one of my constituents and has been bothering me about a water bill that I'm trying to get fixed. So, you know, I knew you were going to be on this thing and we were going to do the thing, but I'm working on it.
Yes.
All right. So, Ann, do you have my PowerPoint? So one of the things about me is that I'm technologically extremely deficient. So let me, hang on.
I've got Jacia spotlighted though, and I want to unspotlight her. Oh, here's my 3-year-old coming to join us. So yes, Zeke, I will. You got it. Look, you got it. I didn't even need to do it.
All right, let me just see if I can actually make this thing. Okay. Don't mess this up, Zeke. All right, how do I make this? Okay, how do I make it play? What do I do?
Go to
slideshow at the top.
Yeah.
Slideshow. Okay, play from start. All right, rock and roll. All right, Zeke's journey. Okay, so the place I like to start is with this letter from my great grandmother. You can see it here. You can see it here. So the story behind this letter, she wrote to me when I was 1 year old, and she talked about escaping from Austria in 1938, right before Hitler came to power and Austria fell to the Nazis. My great grandmother was Jewish, and she was a seamstress, and she had the foresight to realize that it was about to break bad, and she left her family behind and got out right before the Nazis came and occupied Austria. And if you look at that coin that's at the top of the letter, what you'll see is there's a tiny little hole in it, right? If you look really closely. And like I mentioned, my great grandmother was a seamstress. And what she was able to do is to sew her money into her clothing. Because when Jews would go to leave out Austria or Germany or any of the other Nazi occupied countries, the Nazis would confiscate all of your money. And so she had the ingenious idea to sew what little money she had into her clothing, like into her dresses. And she escaped. She made it to Australia. She ended up in New York, and she wrote me this letter, and she sent me this little gold coin. And in the back of it, she tells me to spend it on whatever I want, but it remains my most prized possession, because had she not had the courage and foresight and brilliance to get out, most of my family was slaughtered in concentration camps in the Holocaust. And so, when I think about intergenerational trauma and what it means to be Jewish in this particular moment where we've seen a rise of anti-Semitism really across the country and across the world, as we're seeing far-right parties come back into fashion. I think that's really deeply buried in my heart and in my psyche. And she is the person for which I am most grateful, because I would not be here were it not for her courage and brilliance to flee, and that I still have this little coin from her. It just makes it an incredibly prized possession. So that's me as a little child. I am perpetually messy. I had yogurt all over my little nose. And that is indicative of how I was as a child. That's my brother, Jake, my mom, and me. Jake lives in Austin, Texas. He spent about 8 years here in Baltimore as a community organizer, worked with Build and Child First Authority, and then ran PATH in Howard County, and now does organizing around education in Texas. My mom, who I'm going to get to, was a clinical social worker, taught for 37 years at Smith College. Kyla, Dr. K, was in her class. Fun fact. And my mother was a real inspiration for me as someone who had participated in both the civil rights movement and had protested in a very serious way against the Vietnam War, and who really instilled in both Jake and I this sense of tikkun olam, which means to heal the world. And basically her thing with us is don't come to the dinner table if you haven't read the newspaper, if you haven't thought about the world outside of yourself. And that is the value that she really instilled to us. This was her book that she wrote, Inside Out and Outside In. And she talks about psychodynamic clinical theory and practice in contemporary multicultural contexts. My mom really tried to apply psychodynamic theory and sort of thinking about Freud and Jung and other early clinicians in the contemporary world with different communities. And so her book was really, really widely accepted in social work schools. And she is now retired, but she's like traveling all over the world and lecturing. And so I am a bit of a mama's boy, and I love my mom. And that's my dad. So my dad, this is a picture of us outside of the Annapolis legislature. Another weird fact, both of my parents are obsessed with death. My father is a psychiatrist who spent most of his formative career thinking about end of life and how we improve end of life care, and became incredibly passionate about the right to die. Felt like that was sort of his civil rights calling. And I think because of an experience that he had watching his father die in a really horrible way from dementia, became incredibly involved in the movement around improving end-of-life care, did a number of studies through the NIH and through Robert Wood Johnson, and came to Maryland, I think this was 3 years ago, because I was in the city council, to testify in support of the Death with Dignity bill here. It did not pass. It lost by 1 vote. But both my dad and I got to go and testify in Annapolis, and it was one of my proudest moments. And he was awesome and completely had the crowd. And he's working on passing it in Massachusetts as well. This is his book. It is a story, No Good Deed, a story of medicine, murder accusations, and the debate over how we die. A lot of my dad's stuff was more academic, and then he really took a stab at trying to write a book for the general public. And it's actually a really, really, really good book. And it describes just the agony that so many families and doctors experience at the end of life, where we have this really difficult time with death, and how complicated it is for doctors who are committed to ending people's suffering and having people die in a way that's peaceful and that's by their own will. And he profiled this one doctor who was actually a nurse who gave a woman, she was administering morphine to a person who was at the end of their life. And one night the person was screaming out in pain. And so she gave her an extra 2 milliliters of morphine, and then she went to sleep. And then a few days later, the person died, not unexpectedly. She was having kidney failure and a bunch of comorbid other illnesses. And so she died. And what happened was that this nurse was brought up on first-degree murder charges, and it just completely upended her life. And she spent the next 2 years spending every penny she had defending herself. And my dad just became, just really interested in presenting her story, and a bunch of other really good stories. So that's me with a group that I worked with called The Intersection. Started my career here in Baltimore as a public school teacher, and then with a couple of fellow teachers, founded this organization. We teach civic leadership and community organizing to high school students. While I was around, were involved in passing the Maryland DREAM Act and the Maryland Firearm Safety Act. But I think for me, this idea of that young people not only have a right to, but need to be civically involved and need to understand the power that they have to move systems and bend the arc toward justice is really important. And so that was some of the work that we did. That's my wife, Rena. She is a psychiatrist. She works in Cherry Hill. Smartest person I know by far, but also extremely funny and sweet and kind, and beautiful. So that's me and baby Maya. That was our first little baby. She is also sweet and beautiful, and silly. That's Maya now. She has a grown baby. She is 3 going on 14. She has all kinds of attitude and sass, but she is also incredibly funny and just a whole personality. There she is putting a rat on my face while we were doing a community cleanup and thinking it's hilarious. That's Eli, or Elias. That's our second child. Also very silly. Rena thinks he looks more like me. People generally say he looks more like me. I don't really know. But he is a cutie, and he has also, I would say he's like a little bit of an antidote to Maya. She is like big personality. He's like a little more like introverted and I think just trying to figure the world out. But they've got a great dynamic together. And this was one of my proudest moments on the city council, was passing this legislation that created the Healing City Act. That's the then Mayor Jack Young who signed the bill over at Frederick Douglass High School. Some of my colleagues, and of course, Maya Rocky Moore Cummings, who was married to Elijah Cummings, who we named the bill after, and who was also just a big influence and friend of mine. And so, the work that I get to do, specifically this work around the Healing City Act and this task force, is just incredibly meaningful. And the fact that I get to do it with you all just incredibly brilliant, thoughtful, caring people, is kind of a dream that I get to live. So again, I appreciate you all. And here's a nice little shot of us all getting sworn in. Again, that was one of the better days of my life. It was just so cool to have everybody together and have that kind of energy. And that is my slideshow, and that is my journey, and that is me.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Yes, I learned a lot about you today. I didn't know you were surrounded by so many psychologists and like people who are really trying to make meaning out of things that sometimes we don't understand. And again, since you gave me the mic this evening, I just want to express my gratitude to you and this task force, and really how safe you've made this place for us to be vulnerable and open and to share who we are. I think you've done that in such a wonderful and caring way. And if you've ever wondered why you became a councilman, this is it. Sometimes we do things and we're just not sure how it's all going to come together and what's the big picture. This is it. And I am just like many of our task force members, I think we share in our gratitude that you have the vision for this task force, that Healing City is a movement now that everybody talks about and looks forward to, and has created the aspiration that you wanted. So thank you for everything that you've done to set this in motion for all of our city. And it's great to get to know you and your family just a little bit better tonight. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Tisha. And the only thing I would push back on with that is that it is as much yours as mine. Even though you are departing, you have put your imprint all over this work, and just appreciate the partnership and the friendship. And thanks for just really being there for Baltimore in some crucial times.
Thank you. And we will do more. All right. So, and now it is time for us to do some work, right? So it is now time for us to go into our small groups and our committees and to continue to work on our action plans. And first of all, I just want to say to Councilman Cohen and to the members of the task force, if you ever want me to come back and facilitate us getting across the finish line on the action plan, I am raising my hand to volunteer to do that. I know Zeke is not looking forward to like that. That's not what gets him excited. He likes to just do, right? And so if there's anything I can do to support making sure that the process is what we envision, I'm happy to volunteer. Just let me know, Councilman Cohen. But that being said, we do need to double down and really get our 3 to 5 strategies finalized that we want to include in our recommendations. And we luckily have a good chunk of time tonight to go into those meetings. But Ann, do you mind, again, because you gave me the mic, do you mind if we just pause and see if anybody has any questions before we go into our groups, just because we need to kind of finish this up. And I just want to make sure that if anybody has questions about where they are in the process, that we just take a few minutes to do that, since we have a little bit of time tonight. Do you mind, Councilman Cohen and Ann, if we do that? Just to
No, please. Yeah. How do folks feel? Does anyone have any questions for the good of the group?
Yeah, this is Abby. Just to clarify, so on November 4th, each committee will be sharing all their goals and all the specific recommendations under those goals. In other words, it's everything that we're going to share at that time.
So I'll defer to Councilman Cohen, but I think what we want to do on November 4th is share your strongest recommendation, and we'll go through that. And I say we, so I guess I'll be here. But I think what we had intended, Abby, is you take one of your strategies that you think is really strong, and we present it to the group and do just a good round robin feedback like we did with the statements that we created. And from that feedback, you would then tighten up your other key actions if needed. But we do want to be in a position, because we're collecting it in this Google Doc, we do want to be in a position that we're
Oh no. TJ, I think you
of
froze.
that early November meeting, I think. And that one will do the feedback. And from there, you'll just tighten up your submissions. Does that make sense, Abby?
Everything I heard you say made sense, but I'm afraid that your audio and video cut out just a little bit. So what I was hearing was that the goal for the next meeting is to share the strongest sort of strategy and recommendations that you have. And that we're collecting everything up in the Google documents. And I think that was around where it cut out.
Yes, you got it. You are a great interpreter of weak Wi-Fi. Yes, you are right. We will only,
thank you.
We will only show
Understood.
one, but you'll tighten up everything that you have in the Google Doc. And then we're going to pull everything for the Google Doc to create the near final recommendations for everyone.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you for that question, Abby. Hearing none. And I think we're ready to go into our committees and work groups.
Great. I will open them up. And quick note, I am going to be exiting the meeting. So Iris, if you need to be moved around into a room or something, Iris is the person to send a message to say, hey, I'm in the wrong space.
Great. And we exit from our rooms, right? We're not coming back. Okay.
Just see I don't know that I have you in the right place. Which group are you a part of?
I'm in Tisha's group.
And the medical group will be staying here. So medical folks, you are here.
Hey, I'm in the wrong room. This is Mr. Witherspoon. It's Corey Witherspoon. So I was in the wrong room. So you said talk to somebody, but I don't know who to talk to.
I will move you. I'm putting you in with training, Corey. Got it.
Yeah, like, whoa, what's going on? Where's my squad at? I apologize.
We're pretty cool too, just so you know.
And then someone's on the phone.
Phone,
And so
yeah.
I want to make sure I get them moved to the right place.
I'm on my phone, but I believe my name is showing up.
Perfect, Colby.
Yeah.
You're in the right place.
Great.
I think that's all. Right? Okay, perfect.
Corey's still not in the right group.
Yeah, I love y'all faces, but I want to get them. Corey still hasn't gone bye-bye. I want to go bye-bye.
So on my screen, it is showing that you should be in the training group. Do you see a button that says like join group? Because I've moved you to the right group now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, and this is Steve Zinn. Am I in the right group or in the...
You are in the right place. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry, it's been a rough afternoon.
No, you're good. You're totally good.
Right. So I guess this is all the medical people then. We're good. Okay. Hey, everyone.
Hey, I'm driving from office to office, but I'm here.
Appreciate you being here. Gotta do what you gotta do.
Right. It's a long day today. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So as Anne was saying, this is our last meeting before we present our goals and everything to the group. And I think everybody might have seen that Panagis and I sent out the goals with the starting recommendations that we all talked about last time, and we emailed them to everyone so that we can get feedback. And it looks like a good number of people provided feedback. So thank you, everybody who had a chance to be able to look at those and give us suggestions. I guess we'll just start with, any major things that people notice that need to be changed or added, or if not, we can go kind of like goal by goal.
Do you want to share are you able to share your screen?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me do that.
I think one just overall comment, and by the way, I just really appreciate all the work you guys have done on this. Sure. But it does feel like we still have a little bit of overlap between the goals. And I think that is impacting the clarity to some degree. And so kind of finding those dividing lines. And I think the comment I had made is I think we've got two main threads. It's medical institutions, relationships with each other, and then it's medical institutions and community. And maybe if we kind of start with those two big chunks, because what is it? Like goal 3 seems very, very clear, but then I get a little confused about like some of goal 1 seems to speak to goal 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sort of understand what you're saying. I think that the intention with goal 3 was to Councilman Cohen wanted us to specifically make sure we were including those spaces. So it's possible we don't need an entire goal for that it could be added to one of the other ones. I'm not sure what makes the most sense, but I sort of hear what you're saying. Like our two main things are focusing on relationships among institutions and then between community members and institutions. And is there a way to kind of divvy up those goals?
Because I think goal 3 is a good goal. I mean, I wouldn't change it or collapse it, but maybe like some of you get to the latter half of goal 1, which is, more about restitution to communities harmed. I could almost see that being some sub, I don't know. I could almost put that under some goal 3 stuff, but just to kind of clarify which.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what, sorry, just reading. I think what's difficult about I think why we set aside goal 3 was because those spaces aren't always considered medical institutions or spaces. So it's intentional kind of say in these community spaces, but I wonder if making sure we kind of develop that within goal 1 too would be helpful. I'm not sure what other people
and I may have actually muddied the waters more with some edits to goal 1 because I started editing and I was like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm a little unclear. Goal 1, are we talking about medical institutions and community, or are we talking about medical institution to medical institution? So
I think it should be, I think our strongest goal would be medical institutions to community. I think trying to get medical institutions to collaborate, talk to each other, that's going to be a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we can easily do it, but medical institutions to community, I think we could start to try and make some difference right away.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I mean, medical institution to institution, I think is really critical, but it's also, that's going to take some time to figure out to even get the right players involved. Yeah.
I know every time I start to think about it too hard, I'm like, oh, it's going to be hard.
So I agree. I think this is Panagis. I think we definitely have a lot more ownership that we can do with the medical to community. I wholeheartedly agree. I think medical to medical, I think we put some low-hanging fruit goal to achieve. And I say this because we may be invited to go into a community that another institution has been working with, and we could really sour those relationships if we didn't realize what was already going on. So there's got to be some low-hanging fruit that we can impact that doesn't require a massive lift. And I say this because we've come across it plenty of times. So I think there should be something that we can grab on that doesn't resolve in a massive revolution or restructuring, but some low-hanging fruit should be there.
Mm-hmm.
A really good point about the potential to spoil others' relationships.
Yeah, and this happened with my own alma mater, Dr. Spin. I apologize, but I remember being invited to McCullough Homes. We do a lot of work there, and then University of Maryland's like, that's our territory. And I was like, what does that mean by territory? Like, so just an FYI, it's happened. And there's other examples too, but we got to have a low hanging fruit where we at least are insightful of how everyone's working together in the community.
So I totally agree. And I'll just inform the group. I'm not sure how this helps us or if it does. Because of COVID and pediatric COVID infections that were on the rise over the last couple of months, at the state level, for the first time, we've been able to, at the direction really of the state, start a dialogue with Hopkins, Maryland, even DC Children's about putting together as sort of a central clearinghouse for pediatric intensive care unit beds, because there aren't that many in the region. They're primarily at Maryland, Hopkins, and DC Children's. And because of the concerns about COVID and the potential of not having enough beds, we actually, in very short order, were able to develop I think a dialogue that's turned into what will be a more seamless approach for hospitals to refer patients, pediatric patients, kids who need intensive care. So there is a way to do it, but it required the state getting involved and using a pretty heavy hand. I don't know if there's a way to, maybe there's a way the city could help us do this, but I agree. We don't want to alienate everybody by not being respectful of what hospitals are already trying to do in their communities.
And the other, more to add to that is, there are hospitals that aren't as equipped as the Maryland or Hopkins who want to do community engagement and probably may, feel underwhelmed by they can't bring in the massive resources that we could. But there's no reason why they can't collaborate if they're mindful of what we're doing. So again, I think if there's some way, shape, or form for that low hanging fruit, here's what we're doing, here's how we all can participate, I think just helps out. And I love the pediatric example. I mean, it shows you, with our good government officials, they can get involved to be the catalyst that we need to help us with something we've all been struggling with.
Well, is that then a goal on its own, that there's a, similar to this, there's we call it a task force or something, where we've got representation from all of the area hospitals or most, wherever we can get, with the express goal of kind of mapping what everybody's doing. And so we have a better sense of not stepping on each other's toes. I mean, collaborating instead of competing.
I think so. My vote is that, and it's a nice low hanging fruit that I think it can be accomplished, that allows the doors open to bigger things.
So are we absolutely focused just on the city of Baltimore? I mean, it's the city's task force. So is there, I mean, does the council or the mayor have the will or authority to do this? I mean, I think all it would take is for the mayor to send out a declaration letter or whatever to the CEOs or leadership, and then I think it would happen. So I think it's a great idea. I'm just trying to understand how we would operationalize it.
Well, and somebody who I don't think is on today, somebody last meeting or two was saying that there's some changes coming down through insurance that's going to force more collaboration. Does anybody remember what that was? Something to do with follow-up care, and that it was really gonna, institutions were gonna have to start talking more because of it. Because I'm wondering if there's some leverage there or some point of entry, but I don't remember enough of what they were saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, at a minimum, I think we should put it in some fashion.
Well, and Steve, your point about needing somebody to essentially give an edict, I mean, with, I'm assuming that's something that Zeke could at least give some direction on. I mean, that is city council, and he could maybe help navigate how to make something like that happen.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to do it. I mean, I still think our strongest recommendation should be hospital to community, but I agree that as a sub goal, we would have to first bring the hospitals together to understand what's currently being done, so we don't duplicate or outright offend, and under the directive of this task force or the mayor. Yeah, I think the hospitals would do it. It's not like we're opposed to doing it. It's just someone has to tell us to do it. At least that's my thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I will throw out there also, I mean, I know that, I mean, this isn't even the whole hospital. I know just within the Department of Psychiatry right now, we're trying to do the same thing, just our own department. Like, wait, what is everybody doing? I think sometimes we're, like we're working. And so I can see actually one of the major issues with it, not even being willingness of institutions, but like the institutions themselves have to have somebody has to have that institutional knowledge to share with others, right? So.
That's so true within our own department. But like, oh, did you know so-and-so is really good with kids with, pain management? I didn't know that. I didn't know you saw specifically kids, and it's like within our own department of psychology. So yeah, I think it could be really difficult to keep track of who's doing what inter-institution, much less across institutions with who's doing what. So it sounds like, did people want that to be another separate goal, or did people see that falling within one of the existing goals?
Do you think we can have a complex number one goal? I wasn't sure if Zeke was interested in just one or two sentences, or because I think the way the conversation is going, it's really part and parcel of our first goal for us to be able to ask institutions to interact more with communities. We kind of have to know what is currently happening.
So sort of like I'm just writing as I'm hearing you all, like an assessment of current initiatives.
Yeah, I think to accomplish our number one goal, we would have to do this as well, do that assessment or survey or something. But just, maybe other people have a better thought. I mean, generally when I advise my kids, they don't listen to me, so.
I think wouldn't institutions already have that, because don't they have to keep track of their benefits, community benefits activities?
I'll tell you, for us, it's like the psychiatry example. You would think, but it's all over the place. It's all over the place.
And I would add, especially like in an institution like Maryland or Hopkins, there's health system community-based approaches, and then there's research group community-based approaches, and then there's it just becomes very complex. And there's almost there's an inventory, but there isn't at the same time. I know at Hopkins, and it's very incomplete because everyone's kind of doing this to some extent. So that creates, even trying to coordinate it internally at Hopkins is a behemoth in and of itself. So this is where I really think this could be massively transformative, because it gets people to kind of showcase their work for the purpose of transparency for the institutions and the community. So I do think this can be a catalyst to allow many of us to do what we've always wanted to do.
Well, do you think this should be our number one goal then? Or
I think the primary should still be the medical community engagement, but I think this one should be present as maybe a secondary goal of how to establish transparency and conversations between medical institutions and their community engagements.
Seems reasonable.
Okay, so maybe this down to goal 2.
And then Lindsay, we can sink our teeth in with the group with the medical community.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so hopefully that captures that piece. And of course, everybody can feel free to edit for wording or clarity. Were there other important things that people wanted to discuss within any of the other goals, things that we missed? There's something about goal 4. I can't remember what I read, but someone said like, there's a good way to do this and a not good. Was that you, Chris? Oh, you're on mute, Chris. Chris, you're on mute. Okay.
Debbie had made the comment about
Oh, Debbie.
you can do harm, and then I had added something else to goal 4, but Debbie first.
Oh, just that, you can organizations that have not done this well in the past, telling them to do it can actually cause more harm. So I think that trying to think about strategically how to do it in a supportive, helpful way, I think they're going to need guidance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be anyway. So that's all I'm thinking about. I think there's some things that are anyway. I think I worry that organizations are going to be focused more on spread and not depth.
Sure.
Getting.
Yeah. Do you think we could help with that by maybe delineating who we think should lead these trainings? Like maybe it shouldn't necessarily be from within the institution. Maybe it could be leaders within, educators within this, who know a lot about historical racism and its role in medicine. And, I would think of people like Lawrence Brown or other folks who like do this work and this research and teachings on, DEI initiatives and things like that. Should we be delineating like who organizes these trainings for institutions?
I think, there's actually seems like there would be merit to curating a list of people who are expert in this field, identifying what their particular expertise is in, because different organizations may want different kinds of trainings. And I'm not sure there is such a thing as a well-developed, I know, anyway, that might be useful.
I feel pretty confident in saying there's not an existing well-developed training curriculum. There's pieces.
Yeah.
There's some not well-developed.
Yeah.
What did they do I know that when we first started, they were doing some trainings they were doing citywide, but they were starting off the library.
Yeah, I don't know what curriculum they're using. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah. So somebody had already, from the city had already just done some research to make sure that, and Zeke would know.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff coming out, but man, there's also a lot of just not good stuff.
But even just I'm thinking about the youth organizations that are doing, I was it Healing Alliance?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff it's having youth come and talk and present. But even that, I don't think most medical institutions know they exist, but boy, are they articulate and powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and so the only thing I had added to goal 4 was, anytime we suggest training, really trying to get away from that one time sit and get, okay, now you have, right? So that there's training, which I think is important because there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be conveyed. But that there's an ongoing communication within whatever institution we're working in. And so it becomes, either a community of practice or a professional learning community, but it has to be like the training should just jump off a process. Mm-hmm. There has to be that continued conversation and that continued, now that we're beginning to understand better, how do we apply it to our specific work,
Mm-hmm.
So just framing it in a way that it's a process, not a thing to do.
Right, a thing to check off that you did it. Yeah.
So
it's a good point. I was like recently thinking of the MHA, the Maryland Hospital Association, has this like human trafficking initiative, and they got all the hospitals in the state of Maryland to sign on to these. And they have like a subcommittee meeting for all the medical institutions that are implementing these practices. And they're like every other month, sometimes once a month. But they ask the different systems to present on what their progress is on the initiatives and the goals and lessons learned, and they'll have people guest speak about what they're doing in their hospital to address what we learned in the training or different things like that. And I thought that was like a nice way of holding institutions accountable of like, we sign up on these things, but are we doing stuff? Are we making progress? And I know the meetings definitely make me feel like, oh yeah, we should really like get on that and do those things, you know, not just, you know, go to the initial training and then like things kind of fall flat. So I wonder if like some like kind of what you're saying, Chris, like ways to kind of keep that ongoing.
It's such a leadership issue.
Yeah.
How do you get leaders to sort of say, this is important, you know, this is.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, diversity initiatives are really sexy right now, and everybody wants to be able to say we're doing it. So it's like, well, you know what? Here's a blueprint, and y'all would be able to say you're doing it. So, you know, it's an interesting point of leverage that we haven't really had up until recently.
Yeah.
I have a question about goal number 3. So I see like allocate key resources to allow kind of community organizations who are doing sacred and trusted work or establishing new projects. So allocating key resources, how are we imagining that? Are we imagining that coming from the city or the health department or the institutions themselves? And I guess my idea there is like, could we yeah, I guess that's one question. And then another question in terms of encouraging institutions and communities to work together, do we have any kind of power to like structure a grant or fund that people can apply to with partnerships like that?
It's interesting, the Urban Health Institute does that at Johns Hopkins. They have faculty community partnership. You can only get funded if you have, is that what you mean? By doing something?
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I mean. Yeah, but if we specified that it was, you know, trauma-informed care or like trauma healing.
Yeah, you know what, people follow money. That would be a great idea about having those grants available to do innovative trauma-informed innovation, you know, work that
partnership-based
must involve collaboration between a medical institution and a community organization.
Yeah, right, and I think whose money are we spending though?
I mean, who's the funder of the grant?
Yeah,
the city.
Maybe the institutions also.
Wait, so how would that work?
I wonder if Open Society would be interested in funding something along those lines.
Oh, that would be a great idea.
Yeah, that's a good question, Colby. I think we asked Zeke a similar-ish question in general about like, number one, like what power we had to kind of make these things happen. And like, would that come from City Hall or certain departments in the city, or within the institutions, the leadership of the institutions themselves. And I think the funding question and the resources question is kind of goes to the same point, like who is kind of in charge of the allocation of those resources? Where are they coming from? That I know me personally, I'm not quite sure the answer to that question. And I'm not, you know, I don't know if that's for us to decide or recommend.
Put it there and then let them worry. We can worry about it. I mean, if we don't put it in there, I love the idea. And it might be one in which the city is the one that goes to Open Society and gets the funding or an endowment set up or something. Focus specifically on this.
I love this idea. I'm also wondering, I think it's actually separate from goal 3. It might be part of goal 2 or goal 1 even, but goal 3, I love because it's allocating resources to projects that are already happening without asking them to change or, you know, take on a new partnership with somebody that maybe there isn't trust there. But if we see that project as a way to build trust or a way to celebrate trust being built, it might fit into goals 1 or 2.
This is Panikis. I just want to make one comment about the grant, which again, I just a consideration for an unintentional consequence of it. Just because it's not our money and we don't know how to get that money. I think the concern that I have is, what does it look like if we do get it, right? What if it's like, hey, you got $100,000 for trauma-informed care? People may come to say, that's not enough money to combat that. Like, it's that amount will do nothing versus millions of dollars, which I don't know how to grasp that. So I'm not saying to not shy away, but I just also want to recognize setting us forward to try to obtain money may come across to the community as that's not enough. Like, that can be seen as a double-edged consequence. And I say this because that's, the Urban Health Institute grants, there have been communities who turn away from it because they're like, that doesn't move anything.
Well,
and so just shy away from it.
Yeah, because they're $5,000 and $10,000.
Exactly. So some communities like it, others just say that's like, a drop in the bucket, not really helping us. So it just keep that in mind. It's not to shy away, it's just how to be strategic, because people may look at this and say, if you're really that serious about it, why only that much money?
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about putting the amount of money in here. Just, putting it out there. Yeah.
Understood. Just recognize that there's two sides to a good conversation. And I just want to be mindful of that, because it could really continue creating friction if people would say, this just seems like a show. So just caution with that. And we've seen that at Hopkins. When we do community grants for like just $1,000, that does us nothing.
Right.
So
right. That's very
absolutely low. And I hear that totally. And I think whether the grant has intense reporting requirements can also add to that dynamic of community projects feeling like there's not enough bang for the buck, like you have to put in so much work to even use the money. So want to be aware of that as well.
I definitely agree. We strongly consider it, but maybe we can also be a change in that, like how to do it well. I just want to be mindful of that. Money, go where the money goes, agree, but sometimes it's also about the amount, the quality of the money that gets people to follow.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
I heard two key concerns, and I think this is an excellent way to be approaching it. Is number one, the money really needs to, we don't decide where the money should go. It is existing community efforts that are in need. I think that's one way to, we're not just coming in saying, hey, let's do this and it's going to fix everything, but it's community identified need. And then I also think there's maybe an opportunity to create some support around applying for that money, what the reporting are after, right? If we can take some of that, those are the things that interrupt community organizations from really being able to take advantage of the funds. And so if there's a parallel support that says, hey, we'll help you apply, or we have, whatever structure we set up, some volunteer interns that'll help you with your reporting. But I mean, really removing those barriers so that it becomes something they were already looking for. Yes, we can give you the money, and we're going to make it much easier to get it and to maintain it.
And maybe that's a responsibility of the institutions. Hey, you're partnering with the community. You got to supply them the paperwork resources so they can actually execute.
Yeah.
Well, and the expertise to go after it, right? I mean, the institutions, if there's one area of expertise we really have, it's going after money. So volunteer our time with the community to help them do that. We talk about breaking down silos and barriers. That's one way that we can be of great service.
The other thing I want, and maybe we're getting too into the weeds on this, the other thing I would hope that these grants do, if this happens, is that it also includes a sustainability plan. So it's not this short-term thing, we did the money, we're out, we're done. But the proposal includes how whatever the initiative is, that it can be sustained in the community or in the relationship with the organization, with the medical institution.
Absolutely.
And do we want to include a line in here about like, we want to make sure that the amount of money allocated is significant, in line with the significance of the problem, and leave it at that. Let them know that that's just something that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. Anything else? It sounds like it'd be helpful. I'm kind of just obviously adding in little tidbits as people are speaking, hopefully to capture what you all are saying, which are really all great points and things to expand upon and clarify as we get, a final version in place. Were there any big parts of things that we missed, or something that someone wanted to say about another goal or another point before we talk about which one of these goals we want to present to the team, to the group? All right. So did anyone have thoughts on which, I don't know if it matters, but it sounded like we're all picking one, each group is picking one goal to present as an example of our recommendations. Does anyone have any suggestions on which one, if we should just go with goal number one and present that, or if anyone has thoughts?
Well, is the goal in presenting it, and of course I won't be there, so I have nothing to, I can't even make with my head up how I make a contribution to this, but is the goal to get feedback? So in which case we would want to pick a goal that we really do want feedback on.
Yeah, I think it sounded like the goal was to get feedback so that we can then apply whatever they tell us about how these recommendations are written to the other goals.
Yeah.
Based on what they see of how we outlined in detail these recommendations for this like one particular goal. And also could be one we really want like the most feedback on.
Yeah.
But my vote would be for the medical community one. I mean, I would love to hear, like, we know the weeds of the medical to medical issues, but I think medical to community would be great to hear from others.
Do you mean, is that goal one or goal two? Because I feel like they both are kind of like goal one is about rebuilding and strengthening relationships with community members, with an emphasis on resources and restitution and those things, or goal two, assist communication and integration among medical institutions and community members.
My vote would be for goal one.
Yeah.
And by the way, democracy, you guys all vote. Mine is going to that one.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking goal one too, because I feel like we made a goal one because I think we all saw it as the most significant thing that needs to happen first and foremost in terms of like the relationship piece and the restitution of harm and all those components of trust. Like these are the foundational things we need before any of the other stuff happens, really. So to me, I would like, and I think we struggled a little bit with some of those, like how do we build trust? How do we implement restitution? Like how do we operationalize some of these things? So I personally would be curious to get feedback on maybe what other people think about what we have so far, what we could add. But I also am, for democracy, and if people have other thoughts and ideas. And I don't know if we'll get an opportunity to also present in another time on the other ones, or I'm guessing at some point we get feedback on all of them, but the next meeting is just to like everybody have a chance to do at least one.
I almost feel like goal number one is sort of like the foundation for the other goals. So in some ways, the feedback you get on goal one will have maybe the most, generalizability to the other goals.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so then we can continue to edit this whole document, but maybe we'll all really focus on goal 1, 2 to make sure we have everything we want to include there. Yeah. Any other thoughts that folks had?
No, other than I really like hearing everybody else's opinions. I just want to say to the committee, I really appreciate it because it's all so important and substantive, and I learned from it. So thanks.
Yeah. I agree.
And
I
to add to
appreciate
that-
everyone's different. I'm sorry, go ahead. Please.
No, it's not. No, to add to all of that too, it's like I hope one day we all get to kind of sit down and just. You guys are. I agree. You guys are just amazing. It's a late Thursday and we're all still here. It's a testimony to good people.
Right.
I
Yeah, I
appreciate
can't
y'all
wait
for
until we can have
still being
in-person.
here. Hey everybody.
Oh,
Hey, Z.
Hey, what's going on? My medically inclined friends.
I did want to just kind of lift up, Colby has a comment in here that I think is really just sort of dead on about creating routes for communities to raise grievances, report trauma, verbalize harm. I mean, when we start to talk about repairing relationships, building trust, a willingness to have some sort of formal feedback like that, that's a great idea, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. I'm just typing as you're speaking.
Yeah, I had commented that on goal 2, but I think you're right that it would really support goal 1. And I suggested routes for communicating and reporting experiences of harm, but also like, do we have any hope of accountability for the institutions to respond to those grievances? And like, what might that look like? Might fit into the restitution piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what about leveraging something like, I saw Erica was in and out real quick, but some sort of formal mediation or restorative process, right? Whether it's through the mediation center or there's an established kind of restorative practice group that can hold those circles when there is harm. Because you're right, you cannot have a grievance system and be like, okay, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Then we don't do anything about it. Right?
It's like in grad school, they made us always fill out those like, feedback on the professors, and they would just, I think they would just throw them away. Not too much with them. Like, why just for feedback? You weren't going to do anything with it.
Yeah, and I think transparency factors into this too, because I've had experiences reporting harm in medical care I've received, and the best response I get is like, thanks for this input. We've dealt with it appropriately through like supervision or something. And it tells me nothing about what conversations have been had or what changes have been made, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Colby. And I think, I think a couple of things. One is, I think if this group like really puts some thinking on what that really should look like whether it's mediation, bringing in mediation, whether it's, what that kind of process looks like. And then I would say, I think it's worth going directly to medical institutions as the, medical group of the Trauma Informed Care Task Force, and, introduce ourselves and say like, hey, listen, like, this is something that we would like you all to, as a neighbor, as a partner in Baltimore, to buy into. And I just feel like there's enough juice on this group between the folks we have and just the community that we've built that I feel like generally people would listen, or at least take the meeting and kind of negotiate it out. I mean, I think it's a really, I think it's a really good idea. And I think, again, the power of this group is that we're all like figuring this out together. And I think that it is in the best interest of medical institutions like Hopkins and Maryland and and Washington and all the rest to want to partner with us.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I was just going to put in the chat. When I was in New Zealand, I realized they have a race relations commissioner. I don't know if any of you have ever been to New Zealand. I thought that's cool.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's at the prime minister level. It's up there. It's dealing with their history, their historical trauma.
You know what kind of things they do in that position?
Pardon me?
Do you know what kind of things they do in that position? Like
I think they deal with the issues of the things with tribal lands and Aboriginal issues that come up because there's a lot of historical discrimination.
Yeah.
At institutional levels is what they're looking at. But it's always an interesting concept.
Yeah. Right.
I hear shades of like a community restorative practice sort of group forming, right? I mean, wouldn't it be really cool to have something really grounded well in restorative practices where if they're like Colby, you made a report at some point, right? If the outcome of that had been that you sit down in a restorative circle with the provider or whoever, you know, however that occurred, and there's person-to-person repair. I mean, we know from the work in schools. I mean, it's when it's done right and it's done well, it's really effective. So can we apply that in the community?
Yeah. Well, so I think that's a great thing. And I think that's, if we capture that with goal 1 too, because I think that aligns with like the trust and restitution and the goals we have in there. Zeke, while we have you here, we had a question earlier about the trauma-informed curriculum that the libraries used when they did their trainings. Do you know anything about where that is, or if we could we're just curious about where that lives, or?
Yeah, we made it up. No, so it was actually, yeah. I mean, so basically, you know, what happened was it was us, the health department, Dr. Tara, Karen Weber from OSI, and we, you know, less so me, but the rest of them really have like a strong foundational understanding of SAMHSA-based best practices in trauma-informed care. And our whole mission and task was like, how do we really make this real for Baltimore and not just like import a bunch of really smart, you know, people from other places that are doing this, but how do we really leverage the brilliance that already exists in our community? And so, you know, folks like the Holistic Life Foundation and Roberta's House, like we have great institutions in this city that are already doing healing work. So let's start by teaching some of the basics on race-based trauma, intergenerational trauma, the brain science of it, the various techniques to deal with it. And we just kind of cobbled all these ideas together with the main theme being, it's really got to hit for Baltimore. And it's really got to be about not just like, we've all experienced trauma, but we have incredible strengths and assets in this city. And let's put those to work. Let's teach government how to be more, you know, I heard you say restorative, you know, literally teaching librarians restorative practices, teaching, you know, mindfulness. So we kind of cobbled a bunch of things together. I could probably get it for you, but I would say it's like a work in progress. Yeah.
Because we were thinking about if one of our recommendations had to do with getting medical institutions to do more trauma-informed education and implicit bias training for their communities, for their own institutional communities, it's possible to handle those things poorly. And wouldn't it be useful if we had a directory, curated list of organizations and individuals in Baltimore that did this well? And it sounds like you actually had to do the research in order to cobble something together for the work that you did. But even those organizations that you listed, they have areas of expertise that they could come and do speaking, or they could do training, or they could do whatever.
No, yeah. No, I appreciate that, Debbie. And now I kind of like understand the question a little better. So I think one of the things that we're working on, and that actually the group I was in before this, which was the training and evaluation group, is working on too, is how do we build a curriculum that is more community facing? And that also I think could be applied in medical institutions. Like we are pretty deep into building something specifically for city government. Now I think the task is to build something for Baltimoreans and for hospitals and for medical systems. And, because I agree with you, I think there is a really, really strong need for everybody to be on the same page on some of these concepts. And I think it would be incredibly helpful. And the last thing I'll say about what's really good is that we actually have some money through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Shantae Jackson, who's the head of the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement, who's just been a real champion for the Healing City Act and for this work, was able to get some ARPA money, all ARPA dollars, in order to develop and then deploy a community-based training. And I absolutely think thinking about hospital spaces could be powerful. And I would also say that I think for community, it's going to be free. I think for hospitals, potentially folks pay for it. Yeah, money.
You think we have money? We should have money.
I'm looking at you, Steve. Open your pockets, man. I know.
Every time I ask for money from the hospital for something like this, they tell me they don't have any. So I think it'd be good to, put their feet to the fire a little bit in a nice way, in a collegial, collaborative way. I'm all for this. I think it's a great idea.
Look, I think you can shake the trees at University of
Absolutely.
Maryland.
I think if you're behind us, if this task force is behind us, I think we could. I absolutely agree. I think this is we ought to try. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I would say, I think you all's goals seem really strong. I did want to also say that I talked a little bit to the decolonizing group. They are definitely interested. A big part of what they want to do is work with the different groups. And I think in particular, the medical group, and just, leverage that decolonizing lens to strengthen what we all do. They're currently working on a rubric and how they want to go about doing that. But I absolutely think that in the relatively near future, it would be great to get you all and them together and just kind of work through this document and see kind of what they think about it and what you all think. So that I know that was one of the asks that you all had. And so the answer is yes. They're just sort of working through what that process looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great.
If I could, since it's almost game time, I guess my last question, just I think the goals look strong from a prioritization standpoint. I'd just be curious with you all, where do you think you want to start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just talking about which goal we wanted to present as our example, and we all kind of agreed with goal 1, which sounds like it's goal 1 because we think it's the most important piece to start with, and it's the foundation that kind of leads into all the other goals of nothing else really matters if there's still that lack of trust and harm that hasn't been addressed or repaired, or the relationships aren't there. So I think we've all talked about goal 1 being the starting point that we really want to make sure is really strong and really clear and really operationalized.
Awesome.
Anything else? Do you have anything else?
No, love that. And simultaneously, if it's okay, I'm gonna continue to try to collab you all, and I'm looking at goal number 3 with Sacred Heart, who are really trying to figure out this mental health navigators piece and what it looks like to have more, in the same way that they had a vaccine clinic in their church, are really looking at what does it look like to have mental health and medical services, particularly for a community, some of whom are, as Dr. Panagis knows, don't have insurance, various documentation statuses. And so, but really, really, really trust their pastor and trust their church. And, so definitely, I think number one is the place to start, but I also want to like get you all connected with Father Bruce's church. And
Have you made, you brought that up a couple weeks ago. Have you made progress on that one?
yeah, I think so. I think we're trying to schedule it right now.
Okay. Do you have what you need? You just need to schedule. Okay. Because we have in the School of Nursing, we have a community engagement center and with nurse practitioners and a real focus on the community. And so if you needed more, but too many cooks sometimes make it complicated. So let me know.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cooks on this one.
Awesome. So I think it's time, and I'm going to stop recording, but thank you all so much. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, great to see you.
Take care.